Well, hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to day one of the Fitness Mindset and Motivation Challenge. You have no idea how excited I am to be here. I have waited for day one to start, honestly, for weeks and weeks and weeks now. So I cannot believe that it is finally here. And welcome to the challenge. We have had thousands, tens of thousands of people join this challenge. And it's obviously something that everybody, or many people, should I say, are struggling with. And I know it's something that I struggled with over the years, which is really just being able to set a goal, show up, find your why, follow through, be consistent, and finally sculpt that body that you have always dreamed of sculpting, or simply lose the body fat that you've been struggling to lose for years. And I genuinely am really excited to help you with this because it is something that I have overcome. It is something that I have helped hundreds of thousands of women now overcome. And I know that I can help you too if you are just going to be committed and show up. So, a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. I'm not going to talk too much because I want these videos to be super snappy, but I'm going to go live every day at 12 p.m. at midday UK time. So, this time, well, if you're watching the recording, obviously you're not going to be watching live, but I'm going to be going live every day, Monday to Friday at this time. And then I'm going to be doing a Q&A every day at 4 p.m. UK time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Sorry for you guys in Australia. I know it's a very awkward time, but unfortunately, a good time for me is not a good time in Australia, and a good time in Australia is kind of the middle of the night for me. And I do understand the struggle because my parents-in-law are, my husband is Australian, and my parents-in-law and his family obviously live in Australia, so we can only ever talk to them early in the morning or late at night. But I'm going to be going live every day at 4 p.m. to do a Q&A. And the Q&A specifically is going to be about what I taught that day. Now, of course, I might just take general questions about mindset and different things as well, depending on what comes up. But every day at 4 p.m., you are going to have a chance to ask me anything live, anything that you have been struggling with. I'm going to stay and answer your questions for about an hour. And then for total transparency, I know I've been teasing loads of you here in my network. At the end of the week on Friday, I am going to open the brand new challenge that we have created, which is literally our most comprehensive and mind-blowing. I can't even think of adequate adjectives to describe it, but our most mind-blowing program yet. I'm going to open it at the end of the week on Friday. And it's called the 4-Week Shredded Body Challenge. Now, it's going to be that loads of you aren't going to be able to join the challenge for two reasons. Simply because, one, the price is going to be higher than our normal $97 challenges. And two, we're capping it at 2,000 people. Now, normally we sell about 5,000 entries in every single cash challenge that we do. But this time we're capping it at 2,000 entries simply because we wouldn't be able to offer the level of service and coaching that we're offering with this program if we went over 2,000. So, but the good news is everybody in this group, if it's for you and you're going to be able to swing it in your budget and you're going to want that program, you are going to get first dibs at it because you are going to be the ones who are going to hear about the opening first. It's not going to open to the general public before it opens to you guys. So if you want in, you are going to have first dibs at getting in. And just as an FYI, whenever we open a new challenge, we normally sell about 12 to 1,400 programs in the first 24 hours. I'm not even kidding. So, and we usually have 2,000 sold within the first 48 hours. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a heads up with that because the reason why we do these challenges is usually as a precursor to something we're going to sell, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to hold back on you. Anyone who's taken a challenge with me before will know that even if you don't purchase anything ever from the Sculpted Vegan, and we have loads of people join these challenges and are in our network and download our free resources who literally have never purchased one single thing from us. And that's totally okay because I don't do what I do just so that everyone will purchase my programs. I do what I do because I genuinely want to help women to achieve their goals. And anyone who has known me for any length of time, and hopefully you'll know me after 5 days if you're new to this, new to the Sculpted Vegan, anyone who's known me will know this to be true of me. I just want to help as many people as possible, and I absolutely love it. One other thing I want to say is that these trainings that are happening at midday, my goal was to kind of keep them to about 20 minutes and then with a longer Q&A later because I don't want you guys to be sitting for hours every day having to watch a lot of content. However, again, anyone who knows me will know that I love to talk and I love my stories because I'm Irish, right? And we never spoil a good story for the telling. So I do like to talk. I do like to tell stories. it's probably going to go longer than 20 minutes. I'm just going to warn you that now. But these will all be available in a replay. We will post the recordings to the group every single day. So you're going to be able to watch the replay if you can't make the entire thing live. But I promise I will try and keep these a little bit shorter. But I'm not going to promise anything because honestly, if there's stories to be told and there's points to be made, then I'm just going to have to keep going. Last thing I'm going to say is I'm not going to take any questions or comments from these lives. I'm not even looking at the comments. I'm not even looking at all the hellos, although I can see them coming in. And it's like, really, I just want to say hello to everybody. But for brevity and for the sake of just getting this information out there, I'm going to just jump into these masterclasses. I'm going to teach them live. I'm going to try and keep them as concise as possible. And then we're going to do all the hellos and the snuggling and the kisses and the love and the chat later on in the Q&A. Okay, sound good? Excellent. Okay, so today we are going to talk about finding your why. Now, whenever I was creating the content for this 5-day challenge, I really looked at what is it that women want, and why are they not able to achieve it? Because we have sold, I think, over 500,000 programs since I founded this company in 2017. Now, that is a hell of a lot of programs, right? And although women in my network have had phenomenal success, there's a lot of women who haven't had phenomenal success, or they've had really good success and then they fall off the wagon, then they jump back on, then they fall off the wagon, then they jump back on. There are some women who have reached their goals, who have, created a consistency in their training. They now have kick-ass bodies. They show up to the gym every day. They plan their nutrition. And that is my goal for every single person in my company. My goal for every single customer is that they won't actually need to purchase any more programs from me, because we will teach them everything they need to know. And then, kind of like you do with your kids, you bring them up as best you can, and then you send them out into the world for them to go out and make their own way. That is actually my goal for you. And so that has happened in the company with many, many women. But then there's also, I want to say, hundreds of thousands of women who haven't reached that stage yet. And whenever I was looking to create this challenge, I was really asking myself, well, why have they not reached this stage yet? And how can I help them reach this stage? So each of these masterclasses over the next 5 days is going to build on the other. So you can't really jump into day 3 without having watched day 1 and 2. Well, you could, but you might find yourself a bit confused, because day 1 is supposed to build, or day 2 builds on day 1, day 3 on day 2, etc., etc. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're watching them in sequential order. And then the most important part of these masterclasses really is doing the homework, because it's really easy to satiate in the material. And I'm a really good storyteller. I don't mind saying that. And so you'll listen to me and you'll satiate in the material and you'll have these perceptual shifts and you'll be like, oh my God, that's amazing. But understanding without action is completely meaningless. You have to take action. And so I want you to complete the homework, because that's your first step towards change. That's your first step towards actually taking action and moving towards that which you want, and the reason that you joined this challenge in the first place. So we're going to have a PDF for each of you at the end of every day. I think we're going to upload it into the group, but we're also going to send it out via email. And I want you to download the PDF, and I want you don't even have to write it on the PDF, but I want you to go through the questions on the PDF. I want you to answer the questions on the PDF, and I want you to really think about what I've asked you to do at the end of each day. And just those little steps towards taking action really are going to transform you and transform your life and transform the way you do things. Okay, so what have I called today? I've called it Find Your Why. And the first title I've written here in my notes is The Struggle is Real, but So is Your Why. And whenever I was thinking about what I was going to teach in this particular module or this particular masterclass, I thought back to the very first time that I realized that I loved muscles, because many of you will have heard some of my stories before, but it's always good to hear them in a different way. And I think I was about, I want to say 14, maybe, whenever Terminator 2 came out. And many of you will have watched Terminator 2. I actually have a picture of Sarah Connor. In fact, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to show you. My ring light will be, you'll be able to see it here in the background. But I'm going to grab the picture over here. So I actually have it framed in my office. Okay. So this is the picture that No, I'm trying to get it here. So there's not light shining on it. This is the picture that changed it all. This is the picture that changed it all. I saw this picture in a magazine. I think it was Ms. magazine or something. Whenever I was 14, one of those teenage magazines, I there was an interview and it was Sarah Connor from Terminator 2, and that picture was in the magazine. And I remember looking at her arm, which I now know is her delt. Okay, I didn't know it was her delt. I thought it was her bicep. And I remember looking at that picture in a magazine. I don't even think I read the interview. I just remember looking at that picture and going, oh my God, like she looks badass. And you know, whenever you're a teenager and you're really looking for a strong role model, or you're not even looking for a strong role model, you're just looking to find out who you are. Like I'm going through this at the minute with my kids who are teenagers, and they're trying all these different versions of themselves, you know, because that's what happens whenever you're a teenager and you're really just discovering who you are. You know, you try on all of these different versions of yourself until you get into, you know, your mid 40s or 50s or 60s like we are, and then you're very solid with who you are. So whenever I was 14, I saw that picture in a magazine and I just remember looking at her and thinking, holy crap, she is amazing. And I thought, I want to look like that. Like I was so inspired. Now, my stepdad at the time had a set of dumbbells at home, and he would they were quite heavy though. I think I'm trying to think what they were. I remember they were red, right? And you put the two weights on the side, and the weights were gold. They were one of those ones that were like plastic gold, and I think they had sand in them. And but they would have been quite heavy. I think they would have been. I mean, I'm guessing now it would have been. I don't think it would have been 10 kilos on each side. It would have been 5 kilos on each side. And then the bit in the middle was pretty bloody heavy as well. So they were probably, when all was said and done, maybe 12 and a half kilos each side, maybe 15 kilos. I'm not sure. And anyway, I went and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get those arms. And so I went and I got his dumbbells and I tried to curl them because I thought that dumbbell curls would give me those arms. And I realized I couldn't lift them. They were far too heavy. And he didn't have any smaller weights. So I took the weights off. So it was just the thing in the middle, just the red thing, which was really quite heavy anyway. Probably would have been 5 kilos. And which isn't really heavy, but it's heavy when you're 14. And I just started curling these dumbbells. And I literally curled and curled and curled and curled. I swear to God, I must have performed hundreds of curls a day. Like there was no shoulder pressing because what I was trying to build was the delt, right? And so your delt is made up of three different muscles. There's the front delt, the middle delt, then the rear delt. And so in order to build nice shoulder caps, you actually need to focus on all three of those. But no, I was just doing bicep curls. My biceps did kind of start to change. Like I didn't know, there was no internet in those days. You couldn't look up best exercises for arms. And I didn't want to ask my stepdad because I kind of felt a wee bit self-conscious about it, you know, because I was just kind of trying it on, trying it out. So I didn't want to bring any attention to myself, but I remember just absolutely loving what Sarah Connor looked like and what she represented, you know, with her glasses and the machine gun. Not that I wanted to carry a machine gun, not even that you could in Northern Ireland because guns are not legal here. But I remember just absolutely loving what she looked like. And I think that that was what really ignited my fire in the very beginning. And it wasn't that I wanted to be fit. It wasn't that I wanted to be healthy. It wasn't that I wanted to be any of these things. I guess what I wanted was I wanted to look like Sarah Connor so that others, if I'm completely honest about it, and this is what you have to do for these exercises, you have to really dig deep and be honest. I wanted to look like Sarah Connor because I wanted other people to look at me the same way I looked at Sarah Connor. I wanted to be that representation of strength. It wasn't even beauty, it was just strength. I wanted, because I had looked at her arm, be like, how the hell do you even do that? Like, how does a woman even get an arm like that? You know, I hadn't even seen that before over the years. Well, I had in bodybuilding magazines when I was younger, but not in a normal person, although she wasn't because she was an actress. And so I wanted other people to look at me in the way that I was looking at Sarah Connor. And that was one of my earliest motivations. And I guess that because I had now set that as the benchmark with absolutely no plan or thought or way to achieve it, it then kind of set me on a roller coaster of I don't even know how to put this into words, but many of you will understand what I mean by it. I began to, because this was my ideal, right? This was the ideal that the way I wanted to look set up here. I wasn't working towards it and I didn't have a plan to achieve it. But every time I ate something that was bad for me, like crisps or chocolate or Chineses or those kinds of stuff, which you do eat a lot of whenever you're 14, 15, 16, whenever you're a teenager. Whenever I ate things that I knew to be bad for me, I started to feel guilty. And and sometimes I felt guilty and sometimes I didn't. And I went through over the years these different cycles, I guess, of wanting to be feeling super motivated and wanting to feel fit and healthy and strong and get back to this Sarah Connor version of myself. And then I would fall off the wagon. But like I was a teenager, so like teenagers do not have a lot of persistency, although my teenagers have a lot of persistency, but of course they do because they're my kids. So I remember one morning as well, I had decided the night before that that was it. I was going to get fit, right? And I kept getting inspired by these women that I saw, like Jane Fonda in her fitness videos in her leotard. I could remember Jane Fonda, right? And I remember jumping out of bed one morning. I was like, right, the next morning I'm going to jump out of bed and I'm going to, jump straight into my fitness. And I remember jumping out of bed. I was like, this is what fit people do. And I jumped out of bed and I put on my gym clothes or whatever I'd set out. And I started doing some kind of crazy like aerobics routine in my room. And I remember I pulled a muscle in my shoulder. I wasn't warmed up, wasn't it? I think I pulled a muscle on my shoulder and I was actually doing some cleaning at the time for my neighbor whenever I was babysitting for her. I remember I was just trying to clean the window and I couldn't even clean the bloody window because I'd pulled a muscle on my shoulder. So that fitness program went out the window because I pulled a muscle on the first day. So this is what I went through in my teenage years. I went through these cycles of wanting to be fit and toned and wanting to be healthy and dieting and then feeling guilty. And even whenever I was 18, then I was in school and I was in the sick form center. I remember, they had like Tato crisps, which is a brand of crisps here in Northern Ireland. They had like an offer on where it was like buy one, get one free for like a long time. And so they taped, they taped 2 packets of crisps together. So whenever you bought one packet, you actually got a second one free. And I just loved Tato prawn cocktail crisps. I still love prawn cocktail crisps, or chips, as you guys call them in Australia and America. In America, it's chips and hot chips, which is weird. And in Australia, or sorry, in America, it's chips and fries. Over here, we call chips crisps and we call fries chips. It's all very confusing. But I remember they had this offer on with these Tato crisps, and I remember I just couldn't stop eating them. And every time I ate them, I felt guilty. Like, who else goes through this? Do you guys go through this too? Like, you have this value, right? So you have this value of how you want to be. You want to be healthy and fit. And I wanted to be like Sarah Connor. And I really wanted to be this way. But yet I kept doing all these things over here that weren't moving me towards this goal. I was eating chips, I was eating chocolate, I was not exercising. And then I would exercise and I would try and get fit and I would, and I would get on some kind of, school fitness plan, or I would go to the gym sporadically with my sister, and then I would fall off the wagon again, right? And so this went on over and over and over the years. So this is important, okay? So this is the point I want to make in this before I move on. I had the value of being super toned and healthy. I can't even say I had the value of being fit because I didn't. It wasn't about being fit. I had the value of being muscular and ripped. I wanted to look a certain way, and I wanted people to look at me like I had looked at Sarah Connor. That's what I wanted. But over here, I was comfortable and I was young and I liked to eating chips and chocolate. And I didn't really, I didn't have the money to join a gym because I was like 16, 17, 18, 19. And then it wasn't really a high enough value of mine to really put in the effort to go to the gym. And even whenever I got there, I wasn't really sure what I should be doing. And I didn't have the money to hire a personal trainer. And so this value, this thing that I wanted, like stayed very strong over here. But over here, all of the things that I would have had to do to achieve this, they just all seem too great. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough willpower. Can anyone here relate to this? Like, not enough money, not enough time, not enough willpower? You're all like, no, Kim, not us. The other people. Like, we've all heard that other people do this, right? No one here, obviously, in this challenge. Absolutely no one in this challenge. It's the other people who've done this. Yeah. So here's what happened. Fast forward to, I think, about 2013, I want to say 2014, maybe 2013. I think it was. I always try and think what age were my kids. Jack was born. He was born in 2011. He was probably about 2. And my sister Carrie decided that she was going to do a bikini show. Now, Carrie had been going to the gym consistently for a couple of years probably. But she wasn't following any program. She just and we've always been a kind of fit family. So she enjoyed going to the gym. So she would be going to the gym and training and working out or whatever every day. And so whenever she was at the gym, these guys who were competitors, right? There was a group of competitors, stage competitors who trained at her gym, and she would have talked to them and chatted to them, whatever. And Carrie is very naturally a bikini shape. Like I'm much more of a pear shape. I'm much more stocky. But Carrie is very like if Carrie had a really trained hard, Carrie could have stood on the Bikini Olympia stage. She's naturally very, very, very lean. She was really skinny as a child, but she packs on muscle so easily. And so these guys approached her and they said to her, "Have you ever thought about doing a bikini show?" And she was like, "A what?" And they were like, "A bodybuilding show." She was like, "No, definitely not. Like, I just enjoy training." And they said, "No, no, really, you should do a show. Like, it would be so easy for you. It's, you have such a natural shape. It's, you put on muscle so quickly. You're here every day. You're so dedicated." So she was like, "Okay, well, what would I have to do?" And so she kind of was like, "Oh, okay." She let herself be talked into it. What would I have to do? So they said to her, "Well, you'd have to come train with us. We would train you. You'd have to, whatever. And then before your show, you'd have to diet, you'd have to prep." So she was like, okay, then sure, no problem. So she started to train with them. I don't know how long she trained for before she dieted for a show, but she started to pack on the most amazing amount of muscle. And all of my juices were stimulated again. Like I kept looking at her and her thighs, like her quads really started to pack on some size. I remember looking at her and thinking, holy shit, look at the size of her legs. And her upper body became, really muscular, not really muscular, but bikini muscular, but impressive, right? And I was really like, oh my goodness, like it really ignited a fire in me, I have to be honest, because I was now living my dream vicariously through her. But I was a young stay at home mom of four homeschooled kids who were 2, 4, 6, and 8. And I had no feckin' time to go to the gym, but also I practiced yoga at the time and I was really passionate about yoga. I was practicing at home every day for about an hour. So I was very dedicated. I had a good body for having young kids. I still had a pocket of fat around my belly button. My legs were really skinny. I didn't have, any muscle, but I had those long, lean yoga muscles. And so Kerry then, what happened was she started her prep, which is what you call a diet for a show. So she started her diet for her show. And I remember Carrie loves to eat, right? Carrie is the kind of person, she wakes up in the middle of the night to eat. She eats the biggest pile of shite and she never puts on any body fat whatsoever, which is really disgusting and offensive. And so anyway, Carrie started to diet for a show. And I remember like seeing her at mum's and stuff, and she would have brought her food with her, and she was eating like lentil soup with she's not vegan or vegetarian. She was eating, with chicken breasts and this kind of stuff. Her food was very measured and very controlled. And I remember being like, oh my God, who is this Carrie? And then she bought her bikini and she got her supplements and she got her heels and she got to I think about 4 weeks out from her show. And when you're about 4 weeks out, things start to get really, really, really tough, right? Really, really tough. The cardio is intense and lengthy, and the hunger is real. Anyone who's done a sculpted vegan shred will know what it's like. Those of you who are on EBM at the minute, you're maybe in peak week and you're like, oh my God, this is torture. When's this going to be over? The last 4 weeks really are torture. And because Carrie's why wasn't strong enough, she decided she wasn't going to do the show. She gave up. And I was like I was living my dream vicariously through her because we're very close, my two sisters and I. We live very close. And I was like, no, no, you can't give up. She was like, no, it's not worth it to me. I'm starving all the time. This is, like it's too hard. I don't want to do it. And she was totally happy to give up. Wasn't even like, oh, I'm suffering and I can't do this. She didn't suffer from any it wasn't that she didn't believe in herself or anything. She just decided she was just giving up. She wasn't going to do it anymore. Now, the people that she was training with in the gym were absolutely horrified, as you can imagine, because she had booked her flights. I was going to go with her to the show. It was Miami Pro, actually, one of the shows that I did in London. She was going to go to Miami. She was going to go to London. She had her flights booked. She had her hotel booked. She had her bikini, but she had everything. She was 4 weeks out from her show. And she just decided she wasn't going to do the show anymore. And that was it. And she gave up. And I remember feeling so disappointed. Like I was unnaturally disappointed for her, for me. Like I was living vicariously through her. I couldn't believe that she had chiseled her body this way. She looked absolutely phenomenal and she wasn't going to see it through to the finish line. But she was a childminder at the time. She, looked after a lot of kids at home. She had like an extended childminding service. and she just didn't want to do it. So she just gave up. And but the thing about it was, right, seeing Kerry go through the process and living my dream, if you like, vicariously through her, suddenly I saw that it was possible. Suddenly, it wasn't just, it wasn't just people you saw in magazines and stuff, because Instagram didn't exist at this point. Or maybe it did exist, but it wasn't as big as it is now. TikTok certainly didn't exist. Like, you didn't see girls training in the gym every day. Strong was not the new skinny at this point. It still wasn't, bodybuilding shows were not a dime a dozen like they are today, a two a penny, where everybody is doing a bodybuilding show, no matter whether you're 16 or 60, which I totally support, by the way. But it wasn't like that. They weren't mainstream. It was a little more elite in those days. But it gave me, it kind of reignited my fire, and it showed me that it was actually possible, and that there were people in Northern Ireland, pretty close to me in gyms and stuff, who were doing these shows, and it suddenly put it on my radar. But, and I remember thinking at the time, oh my God, I would love to do a show. Like, I would love to do a show. But then I thought about all of the things that I would have to do to make it happen. And I thought I would have to find a gym, and I have to find a trainer, and I have to go to the gym every day. And I have 4 young kids at home, and I love my yoga and I practice yoga. So how am I going to fit in time to go to the gym every day when I don't even have hardly time to practice yoga? And then I would have to buy all this food, and I would have to get a plan, and I would have to do all these, supplements. And I saw everything that Carrie had to do. And whenever I looked at the mountain I would have to climb to get there, it just seemed far too big. I was like, it would take me years, right? A lot of people put off doing things because they go, oh, it's going to take me years. Like, how long is that going to take? Because we want it now. We want instant gratification now. But I knew that that wasn't possible because I was not in bikini shape. So here's what happened. For the next, I want to say year, 2 years, I just continued practicing yoga. I forgot about Carrie's dream. I would love that if she sent me, I'm going to actually ask her to send me the photo. She sent me a photo one day whenever I was in the kitchen. I never forget. She sent me a photo of her in her show bikini. She was trying it on. I was like, oh my God, look at her. Like, I felt the same way that I'd felt whenever I saw the Linda Hamilton. And I was like, oh my God, look at her. She just looks absolutely amazing. And and I posted the photo on my Facebook in one of my groups, I think, or in my Facebook page. And said, I actually, you know what? It must have been later than that. It must have been like 2014, 2015. I think it must have been about 2015, because I already had a yoga group. So I was running yoga talks workshops at the time, yoga detox workshops. And I already had like a group, an online group that I had started. And I remember posting the photo in the group and saying, oh my God, look at my sister. She was in the group and she sent me a message. She was like, delete, delete, delete. She actually phoned me. She was like, delete, delete, delete. Do not post that photo in the group. She was horrified I posted the photo. So I had to quickly go in and delete the photo. And I remember being like, if I looked like that, I would be posting my photos everywhere on the internet for everyone to see. My dream came true. That's now what I do. So, so yeah, it was about 2000. So it must have been about 2014, 2015. So here's what happened, right? I didn't do anything about my dream of having muscles. I still had the very strong value, right? I still had the thing that the way that I wanted to look, but I still had not put any action into achieving it, because honestly, it just seemed too big. The mountain seemed too big to climb. And then one day, everyone will have heard this story by now, so I won't tell it very long. I walked past the mirror in my yoga studio. I walked into my yoga studio, which I had at home, a little private yoga studio at home. It was just a bedroom converted into a yoga studio, but there were 3 big mirrors on the wall. I walked into this yoga studio to get something, wearing a sports bra and a thong. And I walked past the mirror, and the sun was streaming in through the mirror. It was April. And I never liked my butt. Never, ever, ever. It was kind of saggy and small, and my left butt cheeks hangs lower than my right, sorry. And I never liked it. And so I turned around as the sun was streaming in through the mirror, and it was nearly bikini season. I turned around to look at my butt in the mirror with the sun shining on it. And I was like, like, I had this horrifying moment where I looked at my butt and I could see the stretch marks on the side, and it just looked like it had started to sag. I was 37 at the time. So of course my skin was losing elasticity, and it was just starting to sag. And in my mind, I fast forwarded 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, to being 47, 57, 67. And I imagined what my butt was going to look like. And I just I just wasn't prepared to let it happen. And my dad always used to say, there comes a time when a woman must choose between her butt and her face. And what he means by that is, if you have a fat ass, then you usually have a fat face, so you don't have very many wrinkles. But if you are really, really lean, you'll have a flat ass. You'll have it. Well, you'll have a nice butt because it won't be really, really huge. But although I do love a huge butt, uh, but you'll have loads of wrinkles, right? So I realized the only way I wasn't prepared to get fat and to make my butt look bigger. And the only way I was going to get a bigger butt was to fill it up with muscle. It was like, ta-da! Like I can't even tell you what it was like. It was like God, Jesus himself appeared in front of me in a shaft of light and gave me divine inspiration. Sorry for any of you who are religious. Give me divine inspiration to and said, Kim, you can have the butt that you want. You just have to fill it up with muscle. And it was incredible how that one thing, that seeing my glutes in the mirror, something inside of me switched. It just switched. And I had bought some fitness program several months previously, never done a single thing about it. I went downstairs, I opened my laptop, and I sent it to my husband. And I said, please, can you print this for me? And phase 2 was all about building your legs and your glutes. I said, please, can you print this for me? So he said, sure. So he printed the fitness program for me. And I went into the gym the very next day. And I started the fitness program the very next day. And it was my only goal at the time was to make my glutes look better. Yes, so the program had like full body workouts, had upper body and whatever mixed in, but it was mostly just focused on legs and glutes. And that is what I focused on. Now, here's what happened. Once I got into the gym, my body started changing, which it did pretty quickly because I was vegan at the time. My diet was super clean. I had ate loads of really good food. I had, I drank loads of water. I was fit and active and healthy. My muscles were well, elasticated from doing yoga. Once I got into the gym, and it's amazing how, by the way, just one thing, I found the time to go to the gym. Like before, I had all these excuses. I have 4 kids. I won't have the time. I homeschool. I teach yoga. Suddenly, when my why became strong enough in that moment that I saw my butt in the mirror and I realized something has to change, that suddenly I made the time. Like I found the time. I took the kids to the gym with me. I had them sit and play their iPads on the couches in the gym while I trained. Like I took them to tennis classes and I trained at the same time as they were in their tennis classes. Like I figured out how to make it happen. And so what happened was because I was training in the gym, I suddenly found, and I wouldn't say I found my why. I find my why, I didn't find my overall why. I found my why to get into the gym. My why, I found the why that got me going. And I started training. My body started to change. And it's amazing how action stimulates forward movement. Emotion stimulates action. Like even the word emotion comes from the word motion. So the two are inextricably linked, and they can be what I call a reverse causality. Motion, i.e. just getting into the gym, can then stimulate emotion, like, oh my God, this is amazing. I feel great about this. I'm going to keep going. But emotion, as in seeing my butt and going, this is not, like disgust, this is not what I want, can also stimulate motion. And so motion and emotion are inextricably linked. And so I got into the gym, I started training, and then suddenly what started happening was I started noticing fitness related things everywhere. I remember being on Facebook one night and I was just surfing Facebook. I was in bed and I didn't even know how this picture came up on my timeline, but a picture came up on my timeline of someone who's now a friend of mine, who was showing a picture of her lovely muscular quads. And in the picture, she was thanking her trainer for helping her to, build her body, to, complete her bodybuilding show and whatever. And I was like, ping, like I looked at her and I was like, holy God, she looks amazing. I was like, I wonder who her trainer is. So she tagged her trainer. And because I thought, I thought, I would like a trainer. I want to get into bikini shape. Now it had stimulated that, reignited the fire that had been ignited whenever my sister was young, or whenever my sister was doing the bodybuilding show. So I looked up her trainer and I found him on Facebook and I sent him a messenger message and I said to him, and I knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to do a bikini show, but I just wasn't willing to admit it yet. I wasn't willing to admit it to myself, and I certainly wasn't willing to admit it to anybody else. I don't know why I wasn't willing to admit it. I think I was still scared of being judged. I was scared of what people would say. I was probably scared of failure. I was scared to admit it. If I really went to that little deep dark part of me inside myself, then I knew that I wanted to do it, but I just wasn't willing to say it out loud. And so I messaged him and I said, I saw someone tagging you on Facebook. I was wondering if you have any spaces open for personal training. I want to get into bikini shape, but I don't want to compete, is what I said to him. I don't know why I lied. And I remember he messaged me back and he said, no problem at all. I'm just working at the minute, but let me get back to you. And we had a bit of an exchange back and forth. And I'll never forget, he finished the exchange and he said, let's get ripped. And I was like, oh, yes, yes, this is my kind of guy. Now, interestingly, for those of you who didn't know the story or don't know the story, he was head trainer Laura. He was her husband. Well, he was her fiance at the time. Then they got married and then they got divorced. But they're still friends, and we are still friends too. So the trainer was Laura's ex-husband. Now, here's the interesting thing, right? All of those excuses that I had in my mind as to why I couldn't get into bikini shape, why I couldn't get ripped, why I couldn't change my body, all of those excuses I had melted away whenever I locked on a goal. I didn't even ask myself how I was going to afford a trainer. All I thought was, I'm just going to make it happen. I will make this happen. I didn't even ask him how much he charged because honestly, whatever he charged, I was just going to make it happen. That is the amazing thing about when you lock onto a goal or you lock onto a why. The how just becomes possible. You just ask yourself, how can I afford this? And so anyway, I met with the trainer and I said to him, here's what I want. What do I have to do to achieve it? He said, you're going to have to come train 4 days a week. I said, no problem. And I was like, fuck, 4 days a week? Like, who goes to the gym 4 days a week? Because, at the time I was kind of when every time I'd gone to the gym in the past, it was like once or twice a week or maybe 3 times a week maximum, like 4 times a week. So I was like, okay, 4 times a week. I said, how much is that going to cost? He said, £120 a week. I was like, okay, that was a lot of money. I was like, £480 a month, £500 a month. So I went away and I thought, how can I make £500 a month to pay for this training? I was already teaching yoga, but I needed to do something extra. And so I just figured out a way that I could make the extra money through teaching extra yoga classes and through teaching an extra class, an extra workshop that I was teaching at the time. And I didn't, like I said, when I locked onto the why, the how became easy. It just became easy. And then the interesting thing that happened was once I had started to move the energy in that direction, and I started to train with Curtis, and there were other bikini competitors at the gym, and he would talk about shows and he would show me pictures and pictures of competitors, and he would talk about the different preps. And I got to ask him loads of questions. Because I then stepped into that world, everything just became normal. And wanting to work for a bikini competition or wanting to step on stage or all those kinds of things, it just became absolutely normal. Like I couldn't even understand why I was self-conscious about it before. But I was only self-conscious about it because I hadn't really fully immersed myself in it. I hadn't put any action towards it. I hadn't got the data. But whenever you get the data, the fear goes away because fear is just a lack of data. Once you get the data, the fear goes away. And so I remember then saying to Curtis, actually, you know what? I do want to do a show. And I've always wanted to do a show, but I just didn't want to admit it. And he was like, why didn't you want to admit it? I was like, I don't know. I think I was just scared. So, and I remember going home and saying to my husband, we went out for, and I was nervous to say to him because I didn't think Ryan would be happy with me standing on stage in a sparkly bikini. And I remember going home and saying to Ryan, I want to do a bikini show, a bodybuilding show. And he said, we can talk about it later. And I went, I'm not asking permission. And I knew that, by the way, he had said, we can talk about it later. It was like, we can talk about it later and I will give you my decision. And I was like, I'm not asking permission. And it's funny how normally if Ryan had have not wanted me to do something, like really not wanted me to do it, let me tell you, he really did not want me to do that show because he represents rugby players in Northern Ireland. He's all over the world actually. He's very, very well known in the rugby community and in here in Ireland. And he did not want people talking about me as men don't. And normally him not wanting me to do something would have stopped me. It definitely would have made me reassess and go, oh, Ryan's really against this. Is this, like, oh, I can't really go against him. But the funny thing that happens when you have found your why is that the how becomes easy. And all of those reasons why you stop yourself just melt away. You find the money, you make the money, you work hard, you say to your husband or your partner, your significant other, I'm sorry that you're not happy about this, but it's happening. So you're going to have to get okay with it. The hard things become the easy things because you are locked onto your why. And my why was that I wanted to be ripped. It wasn't that I wanted to stand on stage. That was just the vehicle to get me to the value that I had discovered whenever I was 14. I wanted to be ripped. At my core, I wanted to fulfill my lifelong dream of looking like Linda Hamilton. And I didn't even really want to look like Linda Hamilton. I look at her now and I'm like, she was so skinny. Like Linda Hamilton really did not build a lot of muscle for Terminator 2. In fact, I don't even think she built any muscle. She just dieted to within an inch of her life. She was just skinny. She wasn't even muscular, but I didn't even know that at the time. Like, I just wanted to have muscles. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be regarded as a badass. I wanted to be admired whenever I was, in a bikini or in the gym. Like, I wanted people, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Because it doesn't matter what your why is, right? People might be like, oh, you don't want to say it out loud, Kim. Like, it's very narcissistic saying that you want people to look at you and admire you. I don't care. Your why isn't important because your why is personal to you. I'm just sharing my why publicly because it helps you guys to find yours. You don't have to share yours publicly, although I really want you to share it in the group, right? I really want you to share it in the group. But you have to connect to your why. It doesn't matter how narcissistic or big headed or egotistical it seems. I don't care. There's no judgment here in this group. We are all working for the same thing. We're all working towards the same goal. I want you to vomit your why all over Facebook, all over this Facebook group. I want you to, if you genuinely would just want people to admire you and look at you and think that you are the baddest, strongest, most insanely ripped woman they've ever seen, then that I want you to put that down. If you have a lifelong dream of wearing a skinny, shimmy white dress with a big slit up the side, with a Jessica Rabbit style, like side parting and big massive pouty lips, and you want to sashay across the stage in Manumission in Ibiza, or you want a podium dance, right? You want to be in good enough shape to wear a fucking G-string, excuse my language, and a rah-rah skirt and and a sports bra, or go topless with nipple tassels, right? And you want to dance on a podium. It doesn't matter. You might never get there. It doesn't matter. But I want you to connect deeply to that why, that little shameful part of yourself that you've tucked away because we're all taught, don't be too big, don't be too brash, don't be too loud, don't be too noticeable. What will people think? I mean, what will people think? Who gives a rat's ass what people think? I certainly don't. And let me tell you, it's only stood me in good stead, not giving a rat's ass what people think. So I want you to connect to your why, because when you take action when you connect with your why, and then you start to take action, that propels you further towards your why. So here's what happened. I set a date. I didn't even set a date for my bikini show. Curtis said, right. He said, we'll see how quickly. He said, your body needs a lot of work. You have to build your legs. You have to build your glutes, whatever. But when I feel you're ready, I'll tell you you're ready and we'll set a date for a show. Well, by God, did that motivate me, because now he wasn't even allowing me to set a date for a show. It was like, when you're ready, I'll tell you when you're ready. I started training with him in April, or it wasn't even April. It was June, actually. And I trained my ass off for 6 months. He taught me about macros and calories and and tracking my food, I realized I was only eating like 12 to 1400 calories a day, not enough to build muscle. When Curtis told me eat 3,500 calories a day, I ate 3,500 calories a day. I actually got fat in the first year. I didn't get fat, but I put on quite a lot of body fat, far more body fat than I was ever comfortable with before. But if he was like, okay, finish training and going eat the most enormous amount of calories, that's exactly what I did. I did start to put on body fat. I didn't really like it, but I accepted it as part of the process, because when you focus on building a lot of muscle, you have to, if you're already lean, which I was, like I was super skinny, you have to focus, you have to put on body fat. And so I endured every single how in order to move towards my why. And then in December, he said to me, "You're ready. We're going to choose a show." I was like, "We're ready." And I chose a show in April. And then that propelled me forward into dieting for the show, and it kept me going. And I look back now at me wanting to do a show for years and years and years. And I wonder, how did I ever think it was hard? Like, whenever, but I thought it was hard because I hadn't fully connected to my why. But here's the thing, just fully connecting to your why isn't enough. That isn't going to propel you forward, because many of you, and now you're like, "Oh, hang on, Kim, you're confusing me. You told me that is what's going to propel me forward." It's not. Your why is completely and utterly useless without action. It's useless. You have to find your why first, but then you have to start to take action. And that's what we're going to work on over the next 5 days. We're going to work on a step-by-step plan for you for how you take action, because the most incredible things happen when you start to take action. You find the how. You find the how. But you have to know what you're going for, and it has to be solid. So you find your why, you start to take your action, you redefine your why, you take more action, and then you set a goal, and that propels you forward. And that's what we're going to do for you over the next 5 days. Okay, so you have homework for today. It's in your PDF download. I'm going to get you to ask some questions of yourself. Your challenge for today, number 1, grab a journal, a notepad, or even the notes app on your phone. Find a quiet corner where you can truly reflect without distractions. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what sets my soul on fire? What would make it all worthwhile? I don't care what this is. This is your chance to dream. Put the dream on paper. There's something incredible happens when you get it out of your head and you get it down on paper, and dreams become reality. Then I want you to jot down your fitness thoughts, dreams, and your passions that make your heart race. Like, you might have, like me, like, what set my soul on fire? Muscles. Muscles set my soul on fire. Looking like Linda Hamilton, looking like a badass, being admired for my strength and my dedication and the representation of what muscles means. It means you've worked hard. That was what really set my soul on fire. And then my fitness thoughts, dreams, and passions were standing on stage as a bikini competitor, looking like my sister Kerry, having big quads, having big delts, being able to put on a sparkly bikini, being able to stand on stage, even though I was 37 and a mother of 4. Then you want to ask yourself, why does this even matter to me? Like, why do I care? And there's no right or wrong answer here. This is just your why. This is a journey of self-discovery. You have to discover what drives you, because we all think that if we can just control the external world, we can be different. It's not true. The journey to being different all starts with you. You have to know why you do what you do and what you're going for. And I don't even care if your dream is, I want to be I want to start a fitness business and be a multimillionaire. I always wanted to be a multimillionaire. And I always wanted to be strong and I wanted to be ripped, but I didn't even consider that I could make $1 million or several $1 million from having muscles. Like, whenever I thought about my business years ago, it was like, or I was like, oh, I just want to be successful. I just want to be successful. What am I going to do? What idea? And I just kept thinking, people just keep saying, right, just, do what you love. That's what you have to do. And I was like, but I just love muscles. That's what I just kept saying to myself. I didn't even train in the gym. I wasn't a PT. I'm still not a PT, by the way. I don't have one single personal training qualification, but yet I own and run the world's largest online vegan bodybuilding company. I'm a yoga teacher. That's it. That's the only qualification I have. So, but I used to think, I'm not a PT and I don't train in the gym and I love muscles. How can I make money from muscles? The journey just seemed too great. But again, this is what we do. We think, I really want this. And then we go, but. No buts, just dreams. Okay. Just dreams. And then you have to ask yourself, then I want you to reflect, keep digging and ask yourself why. Ask yourself why again and again and again. Each answer will bring you closer to your core. And then I want you to reflect on your words. This is your first step to understanding your why. So you have to get your dream, that little tiny dream that you've locked away, onto paper. And if you want to share it in the group, I would love to read it. And if you don't want to share it and you want to keep it private, that's totally fine too. But remember, learning is nothing without action. It's useless without action. You've probably enjoyed my stories. You're like, oh, this is great. This is so nice. But ask yourself, do you truly want this? Because if you truly want this, you have to do the homework. I'm not going to let you off the hook. You have to do the homework. And don't tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow. Or don't tell you, oh, there's a lot of questions. I don't have the time. I'll do it later. You have the time. Do question 1 now. Do 2 later. Do 3 later. You don't have to do them all in one go. You can do them over the whole course of a day. You can do them over the next 4 hours or 3 hours now before we go live again at 4 p.m. to do the Q&A. You have to do the homework. I'm not going to let you off the hook because I want this for you. And I know you want it for yourself because that's why you're here. And this is what it takes. I'm showing you what it takes. I am one of the most successful female fitness entrepreneurs in the world. I know what it takes to be successful, and I'm teaching it to you. And you would be crazy if you didn't listen to me. Okay, so my 20 minutes ended up being 52 minutes. Sorry, but hopefully you enjoyed this. So we're going to meet back here in a couple of hours, in 3 hours and 10 minutes, 3 hours and 8 minutes. We're going to meet back here. We're going to do a Q&A. I'm going to answer any questions that you have about finding your why. And then we're going to meet again tomorrow here, same time. And we're going to find your why not. Very important next step. Okay, guys, thank you so much for showing up. Sorry, I didn't say any hellos or take any questions, but I just want to try and get through it as quickly as possible. And I knew there was no way I was going to do it in 20 minutes. Shouldn't have even said that in the first place. But anyway, and I will see you all back here in a few hours. Go do the exercise. Just even do the first couple of questions. Don't put it off. Do the first question. That's all I ask. I want everyone to have at least on the first question by the time they meet back here in a few hours. And if you're feeling inspired, rock on and do them all. Okay. Love you all. Talk to you later.